We're going to invite Victoria to give her little spiel a little bit later so we can just make up a wee bit of time. So I'm now going to welcome Stephanie to the stage. She's going to do a little group activity and also introduce us to some themes that are going to come up again later this afternoon.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. So I'm just going to speak very briefly now because we're going to do a workshop together later on. But I'm actually going to jump you into the future. So we've heard some wonderful stories this morning about how change happens and how there's been remarkable movements in the past. And I'm going to start to invite you to think about the future and the influence that we can have on the future. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is get you to move around a bit. So I'll ask you to stand up, and if you've got bags and things, if you can put them up onto your chair so we don't sort of knock them about. And I might do that with mine because I neglected to do that. So yes, please have a stretch and a movement. We're just going to have a little activity here to start to get us to think and reflect and then start to talk about how we conceive the future, how we envisage it, how we imagine it. And this activity is called Where Do You Stand? So because of all the chairs and things, we're going to have to be a little bit creative about this. But first, I want you to start to think about, just take a moment, if you want to close your eyes, you can. Imagine the future. We might put this in a time frame, so let's say 10 years from today, 2035. I want you to picture in your mind what you think that future's going to look like. And what I'm going to do is start by asking you to move according to whether you think that future that you've envisaged looks better than today or worse than today. If you think it looks better, I'm going to ask you to move towards, if this is the front, the stage, move towards the front of the room. If you think it's going to be worse, I want you to move towards the back of the room. So find a spot. Hold on the conversations for a moment. I will give you conversation time shortly. So if you think it's going to be better than today, come forward, as judged by you. No one's an expert on the future, so just as judged by you. All right, wonderful. And you're not locked in, you can shuffle around and change your mind. The second part of the question is, what do you think your personal influence on that future is? So if you think you have a large degree of influence, I want you to move to your left. If you think you have a small to no degree of influence, I want you to move to the right. Now, just before you move, you can adjust your forward and back as well. So if you think the future's going to be super awesome, I want you right up near the stage. If you think it's, apocalypse, you can be at the back wall. And anywhere in between that, obviously, it's a scale. And same with influence. So if you think you have a whole lot of strong influence, you can move down that end. And I'm talking about you personally. If you don't feel like you have any influence, right down that end, or somewhere in between. So I'll just ask you to move again. So strong influence, low influence. All right. Thank you. Now, what an amazing spread. And I want you to just take a moment to sort of look around and notice that people do have different perspectives and stand in different places on how they view the future. And what I'm going to ask you to do now is actually, so we can sort of turn in towards each other. And this is going to be a little bit complicated, but I'm trying to do it to avoid the chairs. is I want you to eyeball someone on the opposite side of the room. So if you're over this side, you're looking over that way. If you're over here, you're looking over there. And I'm going to ask you to sort of eyeball them, find someone, hopefully someone you haven't spoken to yet or you don't know. And I want you to go and find them. So what I might do to make this not too crazy is the people here will move over there and the people here will move over there. So you're going to go and try and eyeball someone in a different spot to you, and I want you to go and just have a chat to them about why they stand where they are. So you're coming at it not with judgment, obviously, but with curiosity and questioning, find out their story and why do you stand in that position. So this will have a few minutes for introduce yourself, have a talk about where you stand on the future.
The dew onto the belly of the girl, into the woods to make her bed on the ground. Please, please, she said, no reverie to tease the soul that's not in. And comfort in society could not be found. And oh, Miss Crystal Johnny, so full and heavy with pain. And oh, she preferred the simplicity, living alone and sipping straight from the rain, sipping straight from the rain, and sleep, her well and the fire to tell a story old about how this girl called on me. At night she followed the moon and called her down. At night she followed the moon and called her down to speak with her when she's full and round. And they spoke in a cryptic moon language. She was cradled in a cradle, she was cradled, and she knew the moon held no harm. This moment is just a passing song, and the heat of the day was cocooned around her, no more running away, and no more firefly, no more gray escape, and just once more she cried to the cloud, to the cry of the moon. At night she followed the moon and called her down.
I'm loath to interrupt you, but I'll ask you to start winding up your conversations. It's all right, I'll let them do it.
When she was falling around. At night she followed the moon and called her down.
All right, and making your way back to your seats, please. Thank you.
Down. and round. To sleep with her.
Too much good conversation. All right, thank you. Taking your seat, everyone. All right, gold star to Jess. Thanks, Meg and Michelle, I think. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I was genuinely not wishing to interrupt those conversations, because I think I've done this activity a few times, and that was probably the most animated conversation and the most gestural, I have to say. There was a lot of hand movement going on. So well done. I would like to suggest that this was a really great example of people polarising and then coming together to have a conversation, and a very positive one from different polar opposite ends. So thank you for coming together with curiosity and openness to talk with each other. I'm going to be coming back later on to talk to you about futures thinking, which futures thinking is not about, foresight is an element of futures thinking, but that's not what we're going to be here to do. It's not about predicting or working out what the future is going to look like. It's about critically reflecting on and creatively expanding how we use futures and how we use our imagination and our pictures on what the future is going to be. So, with that in mind, hopefully you all have one of these. There are more at the front here. So you can fold it in half. It makes a nice little pretty suitcase. And this suitcase is a little metaphor for the futures that we carry with us. So I'm introducing this to you now because this is for you to hang on to and use throughout the day, and we're going to come back to it later this afternoon. So this is about observing the futures that we carry with us. And this piece of paper is for you to jot down, to notice and make a note of some of the ways that we, you and others, are talking and thinking about the future. So this suitcase, and feel free to write all over it, but to write on the inside, the idea is that at the top, I want you to use half of the suitcase to write down things about how you're thinking, talking, imagining the future. So it might be things like, what words do I use to talk or think about the future? It might be, how does the future look to me? What stories of the future do I listen to? So you can just jot down words, you can draw, whatever works for you. But if you reserve half the suitcase for yourself. And then the bottom half of the suitcase is, how do others talk about the future? And it might be other people here in this room, but you might also be thinking about dominant narratives that you've heard elsewhere, because they're probably different to the ones in this room. So start thinking about how others are framing the future. How do they talk about the future? What words and images are dominant in the media, in the public discourse, amongst your friends and family? And what stories are being told over and over? Yes? Absolutely, and I hope that people bring those two perspectives and others. And I'll talk a bit later on about a term that I've borrowed from someone called post-utopian futures. So we're actually trying to talk about multiple avenues and keeping multiple things alive. It will make more sense when we come to this later. So if there is something that's important to you, one particular aspect of the future, maybe that's the future of the planet itself, you can focus on that if you like. There's not rules here about getting it right, okay? There's multiple options to keep it open. So that's a little task for you to do today. Just as you hear things, notice things, jot them down, and we'll come back to it later on. So thank you.
Now, yeah, well, it's supposed to be 20.